and welcome to this week's Talking Codswallop. And I am flying solo on this one, so it's a little bit different. Gemma couldn't be with us, but she has apologised very much. And to make up for it, I have a wonderful guest for this episode, truly wonderful. A lady who I've had the pleasure of being on her show, but for this one, we're reversing it slightly. It's going to be slightly different because normally she's the one asking the questions, but this time I will be asking the questions. Without further ado, as the listeners will know, I never know which one you're supposed to say properly, so I just throw in both to be safe. I bring the guest we have for us this week is the wonderful, the talented Vicky Hodges, who runs a phenomenally cool and brilliant site called the Bond Room Unlocked. Vicky, how are you doing?
Hello there, James. Thank you for having me. I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. I'm glad you're okay, and obviously, thank you for coming on to this. So, to give our listeners who we nicknamed Salty Tadpoles on Talking Codswallop, to give them some idea, as I've said, Vicky runs a brilliant, wonderful James Bond. We'll go with James Bond centric because that seems the sort of words people use. James Bond centric site and also YouTube channel as well, and that's how we first got to know each other. I was a guest, a panelist on your quiz, but I'm getting ahead of myself for people. So I always like to start by saying, Vicky, tell me a bit about yourself. Where does your story begin?
Okay, so I'm from the West Midlands. I live about half an hour away from, for those Peaky Blinders fans out there, I live half an hour from a place called the Black Country Museum, which is where part of Peaky Blinders Charlie's Yard is filmed. So that gives you some idea roughly whereabouts I am from. I pretty much went through the usual school, college, university, Wolverhampton University, where I studied drama and film studies, which I took a massive career change then and went into retail, which was strange, for 20 years.
And why not?
Where things take you. Mm-hmm. And then after that, now I have my own business, but on the side of that, I do the Bond Room Unlocked, which takes up a fair bit of time now. It's a bit as it's growing.
It certainly is growing, yes. So what is it you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking?
For the 20 years, I was a retail manager, so a customer service manager, mm-hmm. dealing with the public in a branded store.
Oh, the public! Oh,
yeah,
scary!
Yeah.
Oh,
complete change. Stuff. I think it was because I studied drama and film at university and mm-hmm. wanted to go on the stage. Actually, that was my thing. I wanted to, because I play keyboard. I don't do it as much now, but I used to sing a lot, write songs. So that was the thing that I wanted to do. So, and then I got a weekend job, and more money offered. You take that money, and then you get promoted, and you sort of then get stuck in a rut for 20 years, I suppose. Not that I would change anything, because I've met some remarkable people along the way, and it's helped me in my in what I do now, but. It's one of those things that I suppose you have an idea of what you want to do, but it doesn't always work out like that. And I suppose doing the Bond Room Unlocked now and doing the YouTube, I'm sort of still fulfilling what I originally sort of wanted to do by being, I suppose, in front of a camera. Obviously not singing, but it's a little bit of fulfilling a little bit of that, and doing the film stuff as well, doing the film studies and having to do videos for that at university. It sort of helped me along the way with where I am now.
And when you were really young, because you obviously mentioned that you went off to study kind of film, acting. What was it you wanted to do as a child? What did you really? I'm always interested to what people really want to do.
Do you know? Do you know I always wanted to be? I always used to say I want to be an ice cream van, not actually an ice cream man or a person, as you would say now, but an ice cream van for some reason
Hey,
as a very small child.
it's all good. I wanted to be a transformer. So,
So I don't understand. I think it might be because the ice cream man that used to travel down our road used to play "Strangers in the Night" by Frank Sinatra, which is a very odd choice for an ice cream song or theme. So yeah, I think that must have just stuck with me. But I did do. I did have 30 years doing amateur dramatics, concerts and panto and musicals and all that, and for basically the local community where I lived when I was at my mum's, and that was a really fulfilling part of my life. And I was sad when that sort of finished, because that was a weekly thing. Twice, 3 times a week we'd go off and do these fantastic productions, and I suppose as you get older things change and people move on, and so to do the YouTube stuff now and do the Facebook group now, it's sort of brought a little bit of that back, I suppose. Bit of nostalgia.
So I'm going to ask you a question with regard to the fact you said you were doing the dram. What was it? What was your favourite kind of? What was your favourite thing you did with regard to that? What was your favourite, say, play or piece of acting?
I started amateur dramatics when I was 5.
Okay. Oh, now that's impressive. So that is very impressive.
And I finished basically with doing that around about 35. So that's where 35 is. And over the time, when I first did, say, pantomime, being as we're coming towards the Christmas season and all that, I started off, in a tiny little role, background, and then as years went on and on and on, then I got, bigger roles, and I just enjoyed. I always used to get the role, like, say, Buttons from Cinderella, the one that everybody would feel sorry for, and the audience would have to go, oh, and all that. And it was great, actually, just bantering with the audience, and ad-libbing with the audience, and they were just great times, and sadly missed by me, to be honest with you. It was just great just to see people enjoying the show and enjoying what you're doing, so.
And would you ever, because you're saying you missed it, do you think you would ever like to go back to doing something like that now?
It's time now. You seem to have all the time in the world when you're younger, and now you seem to. Well, I tend to, you've got to try and juggle everything. Yes, we've got the YouTube stuff, but of course, my job now is I have my own business, which I actually deal with animals. So again, complete shift. So I'm doing that as well as other things, so it's trying to fit that in. It would be a struggle now, which I suppose is quite sad, really, and I ought to try and make more effort.
So you mentioned obviously doing pantomimes, and obviously the big thing with pantomimes is the thing that he's always said is it's behind you. So yeah. I cannot help but notice you have a wonderful. Is that a poster, or is that a?
It's a double. It's a double-sided vinyl GoldenEye poster, which is probably where the start of everything that I do now began. Due to this behind me, I went to see GoldenEye back in '95. I'd watched Bond films before that with my family, through the course of Christmases and bank holidays when the old Bond films were on TV, and I went to see GoldenEye in '95 and saw it 4 times that week. And the cinema, or the old flea pit, as I call it, it's only got 2 screens in our hometown. Had got this hanging up, and I just asked if I could have it, and they, in those days, they would give you. They gave me this. They gave me a hanging mobile, which had got the characters on, and some lobby cards as well. And on the other side, the other poster. If anybody knows GoldenEye really well, is 2 styles of poster. You've got the one with the flames on the opposite side of this one. And I've had this for now 27 years, and it's still hanging up.
Well, first I'm impressed that you had a cinema that had 2 screens. You mentioned the flea pit thing, because this really small cinemas I went to as a child, the cinema I saw GoldenEye in, One screen.
Yeah.
It was one screen. You would appreciate what was on. You would enjoy it. You accepted. That was it. So, well, you mentioned with Bond, obviously your initial interest. You knew it I assume when you were young, you'd watch on TV and things.
Yeah.
So, what was it about GoldenEye that really grabbed your attention? Is it the fact that there'd been a big gap between that and Dalton's Bond?
I mean, there was a big gap, and also I was a big Pierce Brosnan fan before the film, so I was highly, well, I was very happy that he got the role, and it was just fantastic. And it's so, for me now, I just look back on that particular film with so much nostalgia, and I love the 90s. The 90s is my era. The films were fantastic in the 90s. There was such a variety of different films out, whereas today I think it's a lot of Marvel and a lot of Harry Potter, and a lot of, for the last 10 years we've had Marvel, a lot of CGI. I'm not a fan of CGI. If CGI is in a film, it needs to be a good quality. So the 90s was just great because there was just everything action, and there was thrillers, and there was romantic comedies, and you don't seem to get that variety now. So I'm a big fan of 90s films, even though my favourite film is Jaws, which is 1975. So yeah, that's my favourite.
But there's no CGI in that, and on the point of CGI, I won't mention kite surfing. If you're a Bond fan, you understand what I'm on about.
Yeah.
So you obviously got into, you got yourself back into the Bond thing. You got more into the Bond with the big way. What you have, though, is a phenomenal collection of Bond items. How did you pull this off? How have you done it? Because I have a few Bond things, but I've seen stuff that you've got, and it blows my mind. It's a huge collection. How? Where did it begin? Where did the genesis of this collection
So of course, it started with this poster, and then I just started I wanted to just get more and more Bond items, more GoldenEye things, and then I branched into, well, let's get some memorabilia from the other Bond actors and Bond films. And I ended up having all of this stuff round me in my bedroom at my mum's. So literally the bed was in the middle, and all of this was hanging on the wall. It was all round me. And then when I moved into my own house, my husband very kindly gave me a room to put it all in, which I know many people don't have that. And so, yeah, so I have a Bond room, and one day I was in there moving some things around, putting some shelves up, making room for some new things, and thought, there's only myself and my husband who see this. I really need to get other people to see it. And over a year ago then, that's when I put out the first YouTube episode about the Bond room and what was in the Bond room. So yeah, that's where it started.
And what has been to give an idea from like my standpoint, I have a few things. I do collect stuff. I go to conventions, things like that. What has been the most difficult thing for you to get, and what has been the most rewarding?
It's difficulties, and this is still happening, is when you've got a collection of a set of something, and you're after that final one from the set, and most of the time it's the one that's the most expensive, or yeah. I have a set of sideshow figures which came out in the 90s of various characters, and they're quite big, quite big, and I've still got 3 or 4 of those still to get, and you're looking £200-300 for some of them. And when I originally bought them, they'd have been about £30 ish, £25-30, because I used to go to, or still do, go to a lot of memorabilia fairs and Comic Cons, and you pick up a lot of James Bond items then. Not so much now. There's the type of memorabilia that is coming out now for the collector is more about you wanting to be Bond and dressing as Bond. A lot of clothing brands, whereas my collection is more about is more accessible to the the average Joe. Figures and cars and statues and bric-a-brac of Bond, I suppose you could say.
And it's very interesting the point you just made about the fact that it's got more to turning into becoming close to Bond. Because if you think about it, today alone, I've seen the thing where people have been saying you can buy Peel clothing. They've not money off. It's still a hell of a lot of money, even with a 15% discount for what it is. And you're right, there has been this shift now, certainly where it's gone from buying things that would remind you of the films, say small collectible items, to becoming, how can you make yourself more like it? There's been more emphasis on being more like the character. And
I don't know if that's anything that maybe has been inspired by the cosplay era of fairs, where people want to dress up like their favorite characters, and I've seen good and bad over the years at these fairs. People have have dressed up as, and I think that may have an influence now on where some of these things are sort of going. But I myself don't want to dress up as James Bond, as you can imagine. I'm more of a let's have a Scale-electric or something, or a board game. I'm more that type of memorabilia. Although I have got some props and bits and pieces as well. But that's where my collection tends to stem.
It is interesting when you talk about the fact that people do. I mean, cosplay is a big thing I see, because I do go to conventions, but I don't do it myself. It's not my bag. But when we finally got to meet in person, we were at the Cue the Music show in Buxton, and I probably shouldn't have been, but I was surprised by the number of people who wore dinner suits. I didn't expect that, and I guess that's people attempting to dress up and look a bit more like Bond than just going.
Yeah, I mean, I've recently been to a Bond weekend event for the 60 years of Bond through Shaken and Not Stirred Facebook group, and we had a casino night, and everybody there was dressed in dinner jackets, and the females were dressed in evening dresses, because we were in a casino, so it was like we were part of that sort of Goldfinger type casino. You want to be part of that, so I can sort of understand it in that respect. But I generally wouldn't just go out dressed as James Bond or a Bond girl, just rounding about.
Understandable. So what has been, when we go back to looking at the Bond room done law, what has been, you mentioned like the difficulty of kind of getting collecting and getting certain things. What's been the simplest thing to get?
I think it's always nice when you can get something from a cinema and they'll give you, they'll give it you. I mean, it's becoming harder to do that today, because we now have digital posters, which is a shame, really, because it's not. I like to have a physical item. I'm one of these people. Even with a film, I like to have a physical copy of something. Yes, you can stream a lot of things, but I like to have a physical DVD or Blu-ray, or I like to have something. So I suppose in the day that was one of the things that was quite easy to do. There's so many pop vinyls now. The pop vinyls are very popular across all sort of mediums, so they're quite accessible to get. One of my favourite items that I have in my Bond room is actually a car that my brother bought me for one, I think, either birthday or Christmas, and it's a model of the DB5 from Goldfinger, and it's by Auto Art, and it's 1/18th scale, so it's about that big, and it's such a lovely car, lovely presentation box. That's probably my favourite item in the room, and I mean, you're probably looking at that. I think that was about £40 when you may have bought that, roughly, and you can't get one for lower than 300 now. That particular model, it's bonkers.
It's amazing the shift you've seen the price of things. It's good if you're the person who's got it, and it's terrible if you're the person who's trying to buy it.
That's it. Well, that's that. I mean, even I struggle. As I say, I'm trying to finish sets off, and like and this. they're phenomenal prices now. So, it's I would say to anybody, if you are getting a collection, try and get it all in one go rather than trying to get bits of it. That's not always doesn't always work. But
I feel your pain, because one of the things I wanted to get to complete a bit of a collection I have is To the Living Daylights. What I really wanted was the Phillips keyring. Now, for anybody who knows, there's a keyring in the film. I might as well sell a kidney. It'd probably be easier to sell a kidney than try and get one of those things, because the cost is phenomenal. So I've given up on that idea entirely. If I take you back to the fact that you were talking about the Bond room unlocked, so obviously you decided, I've got all these wonderful things and I want to share them with the world. And you did a video of that shows what you've got. How did we shift from that to the quiz?
Okay, so I was quite late to YouTube and social media. I will be honest, I was very late coming to it. And if I'd only known about this 10 years ago, I think, in terms of me dealing with it. But I really knew. I watch YouTubers on. I'm a theme park fan as well. Yeah, I love a theme park. Whether it be in this country or abroad. And I watch a lot of YouTubers, particularly over in Florida, who look at, the theme park, Disneyland and Disney World and all that. And I think I'd started watching those from about 2016. So with that in mind and how they do that, I was thinking, well, I wonder if I could do that with the Bond room. And I mean, the very first episode I put out was literally just me talking about the room and what I'd got in there and what inspires people to collect. And then the second video was hints and tips on how to collect. And then after that, it started to change. And I started to introduce the fans into talking on the videos as well. And then that sort of expanded. So yes, the central core of the video is taking an item from the room and relating it to one of the films, but also then now getting fans or guests sometimes to talk about their thoughts on that particular film. So it's sort of progressed from where it started, or has expanded, I suppose.
Yeah, and they've always been very good. And I'm not just saying, because I have been in a couple of things where I've discussed stuff. It's not me stroking my own ego too much, but it's really good stuff you've created. And it's interesting to hear people's takes on things. And sometimes they may have unpopular opinions, they have popular opinions. It is what it is. Now, I'm going to assume that one of the tough things for you when you do things like the quiz, etc., is it's the research element. So are you working on all the stuff you've remembered yourself about the films, or do you do a bit of a deep dive?
Bits and pieces. So essentially, because I have the YouTube channel, I thought, right, I'll sister that with a Facebook group, and the two interlink. Because the Facebook group, you can, do other things on. There's only so much you can do on sort of a YouTube channel, So as the YouTube channel grew, I started to think, right, okay, let's give the members of the Facebook group the choice of picking the film for my next video. So I don't actually pick the content. Well, I do pick the content, but I don't pick the starting point. So what I thought, I'll put on 4 films randomly picked and let them vote which one they think I should do the next episode on. And then I will look in my Bond room, see what I've got, and then think, right, what can I do that will be interesting to talk about and include fans to talk about from that. So, for example, recently we've just done Moonraker. Look at Moonraker, and we've done it as a debate. So I've got 2 fans debating, one good, one really likes Moonraker and one absolutely despises it, and they have a sort of a debate over what they think. And I've took an item which would have been, in this case, a Moonraker annual from 1979 to tie in, to link everything together. So essentially, it starts with the fans and it's made for the fans. So that's sort of where it's now progressed from just looking around my room.
And if you ever because you mentioned that you also give them a list of films that they can choose from. Have you ever had somewhere they've chosen and you thought, oh my God, what have I done?
Sometimes you can be scratching your head a little, and I'll be honest. Possibly the next film coming up is one where I'm like, right, okay, what can I? I tend to find that it tends to be the ones that, not saying the ones I don't enjoy, because I enjoy them all, but there are some that we all watch more than others, and can be a bit more trickier to speak about. So, for example, I'm going to give the example: Quantum of Solace. It's not everybody's favourite. Certainly not one of my favourites, but it has a lot to be discussed in there, and that will be the next subject for the next video. So and looking at, okay, what can we actually focus on in that film that will bring in fans to debate? And I think there's some good content in there now, as it's in planning stages.
Mm-hmm. And so you obviously mentioned that there's certain Bond films that we love that generally, well, everybody has a different view of Bond. And there's always this common that, like with a lot of things, the first Bond you see is kind of like the one you like the most. So what are your earliest Bond memories?
Okay, so my favourite Bond film, you would think would be GoldenEye, but it's not.
You'd think so, because the bloody great big poster behind you.
Yeah, it's actually Goldfinger.
Okay.
My favourite Bond actor is Sean Connery. Brosnan is a second. So, and Goldfinger for me just got it, as we all know, it's Formula Bond. It's Formula Bond. It's has all the elements that bring together, what we see now in a Bond film, or up to a certain point, up to some of Daniel Craig's films. Locations, girls, gadgets, one-liners. It's got it all. And there's so much in that film that are my favourites. So my favourite villain is Goldfinger, and my favourite henchman is Oddjob. So there's lots. My favourite car is the DB5, and so that tends to be. I think when I first saw that film, I was just thought, wow, because there's so many interesting elements to it, that it's always stuck with me. And I think that's why it's become my favourite film, and I could watch it over and over. I think it's great.
And that's one of the things with Bond that I've found. It does have this almost like addictive quality that you can, for me to live in daylights, and God, I dread to think how many times I've seen that film. The things I've purchased probably more times than I should have done when it comes to the different versions on DVD and Blu-ray and but yeah, it's one of those things where it does become, well, I guess you've got the room, you end up amassing.
Yeah, I mean, how I look at it, and this is by pure chance, and it was only when I was reeling off a list to somebody, another Bond fan, that I realised that my top 7 films include every Bond actor without me realising it. So number 1 would be Sean Connery. So Goldfinger and From Russia with Love. So that's 1 and 2. My third favourite film is GoldenEye. So that covers Brosnan. My 4th favourite film is Casino Royale. So that covers Daniel Craig. My 5th film is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So that covers George Lazenby. 6 would be The Spy Who Loved Me, so that covers Roger Moore, and then 7 is License to Kill, which covers Timothy Dalton, and that's by pure chance that I never realised that I got all of them in there in the top 7.
That's very, very good. So we obviously mentioned your favourite, and it's always interesting. What's your least favourite Bond, and why?
Bond film. I think at the moment I'm going to have to say No Time to Die is my least favourite. It's the ending. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but I'm the sort of Bond fan who believes that Bond wins the day, gets the girl, kills the baddie, and I know I'm perhaps a traditional Bond fan in that sense, and No Time to Die was so far removed from that. I struggled, and I did see it 3 times on release, at various different formats, and rather than getting better, I actually found it got worse because I knew what was coming. And I think you're either in the I really like it camp, or I really hate it camp. I don't hate it because I think it has some really good elements in there. But it's probably the one that I would watch the least, I'd say now.
I will share without giving anything away for people who haven't seen it, but I'll just say I use very strong expletive at the end of the end of that.
Yes, I was quite emotional, and I couldn't quite work out why I was emotional, but I do know now why I was, because I was more of like, why has this happened? That sort of thing.
Yes. So you clearly didn't come out with the what the and guess the swear word I use.
Yeah.
I was not. I mean, I've probably like you. It's interesting because I've not rewatched it. Really, I think I maybe watched it once. I bought it. I'm completist, but I'm not invested in seeing it as a film.
No,
it's not.
That's exactly me. I got the DVD, and I think last Christmas, and I haven't opened it. I haven't watched it because I just can't bring myself to do it for some reason.
it doesn't feel like Bond to me.
No.
Really, as a film. But it's an interesting thing because when you look back at the tenure of Daniel Craig, I remember when he was announced, I did not see it. I mean, how wrong was I? But I just thought, this is very strange. I remember his announcement. I was thinking, I can't really succeed on the saying to me, it's the guy from Layer Cake. I'm really the guy from Layer Cake, but he doesn't look like Bond. And then, of course, the view of seeing Casino Royale completely changed my view of him in the part.
Yeah, no, that for me is his strongest film. I can't see a thing wrong with that film. I just think it's brilliant, and everything about it I love. And I don't think the other films encapsulated that. Obviously, following up with Quantum of Solace, that was a completely different. That didn't even feel like a Bond film as well. I'll be honest, that was more like Jason Bourne, in my opinion.
And it had it's interesting when you mentioned the style of ending, the ending you would expect. Quantum of Solace didn't have the kind of ending you expect.
No.
I remember the girl I was going out at the time said to me, well, that's kind of like not a Bond ending. He's not in bed with the girl. It's not the end of the stuff you expect.
That's right.
So I can see that point there. What's been your biggest pleasant surprise in Bond then? Would it have been Craig when he pulled it off for Casino Royale? It was like, I get it.
Yeah, I came out of that film thinking the Bond franchise is in good hands here. On the back of Die Another Day. For me, Die Another Day in 2002 is a film of two halves. The first half is great. It's where, and then it just goes downhill. I'm not. And because it's a Brosnan film, you would think he'd rate quite high with me, but no, it is lower-ended for me. So seeing how that sort of finished and how that was received, and then having coming out of Casino Royale, it was just like more like, I was just so happy. It felt like From Russia with Love to me. It was that sort of like, proper spy sort of thing, and showing you the origins of where Bond started from. So I just love that film. I'm just unfortunately Quantum of Solace I didn't have that same feeling from Quantum of Solace as I left the cinema on that one, but
I would argue for Quantum of Solace, it has a good introduction. The car chases, that really does grab your attention. But interestingly, you were talking about sort of like the way Die Another Day was perceived and looked at. One of the things I find interesting is people don't particularly like the music for Die Another Day, with it being Madonna. And there was the same kick in the teeth with regard to the music for Quantum of Solace. One of the areas where people, obviously, we all have our favorite Bond films, we all have the ones we hate, the ones we dislike, but a big dividing factor seems to be the music. And I'm not on about the whole soundtracks. I'm just on about the title sort of music that's used. So, which is your favorite artist?
Okay, so my favorite Bond theme is You Only Live Twice.
Okay.
I absolutely love that whole soundtrack, actually. And Nancy Sinatra, who sang that, really struggled, and they had to piece it together, to make one decent recording. She really struggled with the song. It was quite difficult. But I just love the whole sound of that. Of course, the film is set in Japan, and it's got that whole sound, that feel to it. And there's a scene in the actual film where Bond is fighting a group of ninjas on the top of a building at Kyobi Docks, and that music is played in the background as the camera pans out, and you see this vast expanse of rooftop and how many ninjas he's got to fight. And it's a fantastic scene, and the music just brings the whole element to that. So yes, a complete change again. There I've gone for something that I haven't mentioned yet, but yeah, that's my favourite. When you talk about, because people do say, I don't like the Madonna, Dying of the Day soundtrack, and I don't like Another Way to Die, Quantum of Solace. I don't mind the Madonna one in context of the title sequence. I think it works in that concept. I'm not so keen on Another Way to Die. That is probably my least favourite theme song. I think maybe because it's so different. Maybe I don't know. It's not something that you could easily sing back, I suppose. Maybe that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm more of a sort of like the sort of melodic type Bond themes, really. Saying that, after You Only Live Twice, my second favourite one is The World Is Not Enough, which is by Garbage, which is totally different again.
It is totally different.
Yeah. So yeah, I suppose we all have the ones that we really like. I mean, what's yours? So what would you say yours is?
It would be definitely my favourite. No surprises to anybody, would be The Living Daylights.
Yes.
I do absolutely love the soundtrack, the whole kit caboodle with that one. But
Yeah.
the thing I would say on Bond is it's the same thing with the films. It's the same thing with the music. Even if you dislike it, each one brings something that is positive to it that you can take enjoyment from. Each actor brings something that's a little different. Each song brings things that are a little different. My least favorite song, I don't know, because as I said, with all of them, I like a bit of them. I don't hate the Madonna song. Lots of people really.
No, I don't. I don't, and I think it sort of works in that sort of the way they've filmed the torture sequence at the beginning of the film.
I got the torture sequence was the beginning. I thought it was later on with the kite surfing.
Yeah, even I've grown at that. So yeah, I think it's interesting how people are drawn to different soundtracks. Another popular one, another one that I like is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is just an instrumental. It hasn't got any words at all, but it's fantastic. And as you know, we've heard Cue the Music play, and it's just fantastic piece of music. And it fits well with the film.
So going back to something we discussed earlier, so you have the literally the Bond room unlocked, and you talk to fans through the Facebook stuff you've created where they can look at the films and discuss the films and do videos. How did the quiz come about?
Okay, so on the Facebook group, it gives me a little bit more scope to do other things. So the quiz was just something that I thought fans could, it's just a fun evening, really. And it's not your typical type of quiz, as you know. It's you can't have many people play it because we'd be here for 3 hours still going around. But it's and it draws on topics that maybe you wouldn't have even thought about in a Bond film. So we might have a topic on a drink or a line from one of the songs, and sometimes it can just completely throw you. You're like, and then you realise once you know what it is, like, yes, of course, it's that. So it's just a bit of fun, really. Just to bring to the group more so than anything.
To give our listeners an idea of how Vicky has created this wonderful quiz, and she will basically choose. She may just say something like, I don't know, say exploding pen, and you've got to be able to discuss it in the context of the film and other things. So the exploding pen will give you an idea. Would be golden eye, could be a Parker pen. You'd mention all these things. What I want to know, and hopefully this will not ruin it for me in the future, is how do you do like the scoring thing? How do you? Because that's when I was asked you about the research question. About because the research must be quite a tricky thing to be able to hit all these pointers.
So so there is. I'm going to get it there. Oh, if I can get up and I can show you one of the things that I use, because it is a bit of a Bible. This book, where am I? This book is a godsend. Yeah. They don't all come from this book, but if I want to get something a little bit trickier, that's a good starter for 10. I tend to make sure I pick something from each topic. So, make sure we've got a drink in there, make sure we've got a car in there, make sure we've got an actor or an actress in there. So you get a wide variety of different questions, and just to make it more interesting. I do have to research. I'll be honest. There are people out there in the Bond community who know far more than I do. Believe you me. And we all have our little elements of, we all have our areas of expertise, and films that we know really well, and films that we're perhaps not quite as up to speed on. And sometimes some of these questions can really catch you out. As you will full well know, and I think if I was on the other side of the coin and I was sitting where you was, I think I would be like, okay, I'm not sure if I can answer that myself. So yeah, it is interesting, and as I'm doing it, I'm learning as well in some cases. Well, I mean, there was on the most recent one, we had a question on Naomi Harris. Naomi Harris plays Eve Moneypenny in the Daniel Craig films, and one of the things that came up was that her first TV role in 1987 was in a children's program called Simon and the Witch. Now, even I didn't know that, so we were all sort of like, oh, okay. And then since then, on the Facebook group, I have actually put a picture of Naomi Harris on the page to say this is what she looked like. So so it's trying to tie it all together. So what we do on the YouTube channel or in the quiz will then come back to the Facebook group, and those members on there can discuss it, because not everybody's a subscriber to the YouTube channel. We can only have so many on the quiz, so it just branches it out to the rest of the members as well.
As long as it doesn't become so obscure that it turns into a Saturday Night Live Star Trek sketch with Shatner when they say to him, what was the combination you set of the safe in this episode? He's like,
yeah. Yeah. But most of the time, if you don't know it, and then when the answer is revealed, everybody's like, oh yes,
yeah, very true. I can say with absolute certainty of knowledge that it usually does turn to the oh yeah, I should have known that. So if you could have been, because we obviously Bond is a shared passion for us, shared interest. If you could have been involved in the creation of any Bond film, event, book, whatever, what would it be? Or for the future?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to be on a Bond set and just watching and seeing how things are, created, and just to sit there and watch it unfold more than actually being part of it. It would just be really interesting just to watch anything like that. And, that would be a thing for me. And I suppose over the years, I've been fortunate to meet such a lot of Bond stars, which started in 1999 was the very first autograph on Bond star I met was Shirley Eaton, who, again, lo and behold, is Goldfinger. And so every time I went to a movie fair or or event, I would then get more autographs, and and it's still ongoing. The most recent autograph, the last one I've recently got, and to stick on the Goldfinger theme, it was a guy called Norman Wanstall, who was the sound editor on Dr. No, For Russia with Love, and he won an Oscar for Goldfinger for sound editing. And to actually stand there and hold the Oscar that he actually won was amazing, because it's so heavy, and I'm never going to hold an Oscar again, but it was really heavy, and it was such an experience, and the man was a fountain of knowledge. He was such an honor to be in his presence, because such a, these guys are pure talent, and they're sort of the unsung heroes really of behind the scenes in Bond films, sound editors and those sort of people. So that was great. So it's still ongoing. I'm still getting more and more, over the years. I've been fortunate to meet Britt Eklund, George Lazenby, Richard Keel played Jaws, Gloria Hendry, who played Rosie Carver from Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die. I thought I said that wrong then. There's been lots and lots. Honor Blackman as well, Goldfinger. So there's some that I've been fortunate to meet. I would have loved to have met Desmond Llewellyn. That would have been the one, but unfortunately, how things turn out. But that would have been one that I would have really liked to have met.
What's been out of meeting the various different people who've been involved with Bond? What's been the one that was probably the trickiest to pull off? And how do you meet these people? How has it been generally going to events, or is it...
events? And getting an autograph and a picture, and some have been so kind and have time to speak to you. More than others, really. You get some stars who will just sign, and that's pretty much it. But then you've got others who are very gracious and will speak to you for as long as they can. Again, on the Bond Room Unlocked, I was fortunate to interview The World Is Not Enough's henchman, one of the henchmen, actor called Sean Cronin. And he was at the latest event that I went to, and he was so much fun. And he's just, and they're the sort of people you really remember, because, he was happy to, talk and have a laugh with you, and, take pictures, and he was so much fun. So definitely look out for that, for Sean, because he's a director now, and he's doing some great stuff at the moment.
And what's your general interact? I mean, you've kind of mentioned obviously when you're meeting people who've been involved in the making of the films. What's your general interaction been like with fellow fans like me and other? Not specifically me. I don't mean that. That sounds really egotistical. I don't mean me. I mean just in general, meeting other members of the fan base.
Now, if I'm honest, there isn't many female Bond memorabilia collectors in the community. I'm probably one on my own, really, at the people that I know in the community that I deal with. So, and speaking to another YouTuber, again at the event I was recently at, the Dutch Bond fan, he said he had never come across a female James Bond merchandise collector. So I am sort of a single anomaly, I suppose. But I'm not treated any different to anyone else. We all have an opinion of who we like, who we don't like. I always say it's subjective. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's it's personal taste. And people seem to respect your opinion, even though they may not agree with it. They don't, they don't argue with you. That's fine. It would be a very boring community if we were all the same, I would say.
It's also very interesting thinking about when we met at the Cue the Music show, the one that was on in Buxton. It was nice to be able to meet you, obviously. But it was also, everyone was very welcoming. That's something I really liked as a community. Everybody's very welcoming. I got to meet people who knew who I was. I initially didn't know who they were until I had a the moment where you twig that
Yeah.
who they are. But it was just it's a great thing to be able to see these people, and it is. We seem a very open, kind, friendly family.
Yes,
a group of fans.
And, yeah. I mean, everybody's so welcoming, and one of the things that I've sort of started to sort of at first it seemed really weird. I was at a CovCon, the Coventry Film Convention earlier on in the year, and I had a guy come up to me and he said, "You're Vicky off the Bond Room Unlocked," and I just stood there like, huh? Like, I watch your channel, and that threw me completely because I was like, really? And then that I find that odd. I don't know if you've had that, but I find that really odd.
You do have people. I've had that a few times where people know who you are. You don't know who they are. It's always very nice.
But the fact that they're watching my content as well, sort of threw me completely, and I'm like, really? But I'm sort of getting a little bit more used to that now. And because it was just very strange to start off.
Very good content though, Vicky. So you can see why people would come and speak to you. You've created something that's really good and very interesting. It's so who's been because you mentioned that obviously, I interview people, you do interviews with people. What's been the most rewarding interview you've done?
Oh, I haven't interviewed that many sort of famous people because that's not really what my YouTube channel is about. Occasionally I'll throw in maybe an interview with, as I say, Sean, and I've done a few Bond artists along the way, and I've got some more other things lined up. But for me, I like to get it's more about the fans and getting the fans involved, and because not all Bond fans have the means to be able to put their point across. Not everybody likes to be in front of a camera, or not everybody has the facilities to do that or to work out how to do that. So I'm giving them the platform to do it. That's basically it. And that it's quite rewarding when you get people who said, yes, I'm happy to be part of your next video, and then they'll send me their content across, and we go from there.
I like it. It's a very good answer. I like that. So I'm going to ask you the real killer question that every Bond fan is asked: who do you want as the next James Bond, and why? And who do you not want as the next James Bond?
Yeah. So, I'm a huge advocate for Aidan Turner. For those people who don't know who Aidan Turner is, he was Poldark on the BBC, but I think he was also in previous to that. Is it Being Human? For those who watched that vampire show, I think it was, and also he was in an Agatha Christie representation of, and then there were none, and it was that show that really sealed it for me. The look, he got the tuxedo on, he's got quite curly hair really, but they'd flattened it, they'd straightened it, and he was just sitting there, he was smoking, and it was all like a misty, and I thought, crikey, that's like Bond from like the 1960s, that type of look. And I thought that, but whether he will get that, because they're saying that they've not chosen anyone yet, and it's going to be a few years. He's going to be early 40s by that time. He might well have gone past that period. If they're looking for a younger actor. One name that crops up that I really don't want to be Bond is Tom Hardy. I don't think he's the right person to be James Bond. He's no. He'd be too much like Daniel Craig for me, a rougher Bond, and I just don't think he's right. Again, he'd be too old, if we can say that. But yeah, so Aidan Turner. I wouldn't be disheartened if Henry Cavill got it. I'm not a huge fan. I don't think his acting is brilliant, but he's got the look as well. I know he's a popular choice. So Aidan Turner for me, I'd say. Or possible little outside choice maybe not have been considered, and I recently watched him in a Netflix show called The Cabinet of Curiosities by Del Toro, the horror director, and an actor called Ben Barnes. I don't know if you've come across this guy, Ben Barnes.
The name
again,
sounds familiar.
He's around about the same sort of ages as Turner. So, I have a feeling they're going to go for somebody younger this time.
I mean, for me, I'm hoping it would be Henry Cavill, but I reckon she was a runner-up, wasn't he, to Daniel Craig?
That's right.
So he does have that in his favour. But again, the problem you've got is, is he going to be too big in the fact that, he's Superman, he's done The Witcher. Could he demand too much money? Could his previous roles are overshadow the part? So it's tricky. But hey, we're not the broccoli. And
I mean, another name that's come up. It's not a name that actually is like always mentioned, but it's a name of but the thing is, he's an A-lister, and that's Chris Hemsworth. Now he would absolutely look the part, and the guy can act, but he's an A-lister, and I mean, he's going to be,
mucho money.
Yes, but he would get the credit. He would open up a whole new, I would say, audience to Bond, because he's got a huge following, and so he's another one. But that's sort of like a way outside choice, really.
But it's certainly, I mean, you never know. You never know.
No.
Well,
no. I mean, we wouldn't have predicted Daniel Craig, would we?
No, we wouldn't have done it. And the other thing is, we don't even know how far away it will be until they make the next film. We don't know what.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Be. And if you look at what happened with No Time to Die coming out, on the fact there was all the issues with COVID, it was delayed and delayed and delayed, and So you never know how it's gonna go on, things like that. I'm gonna ask you a bit of a controversial one, possibly controversial. So with No Time to Die, we won't give away the ending, but what I will say, something that surprised me, and I like your take on this. There was no tribute to the people who were involved with Bond who died. So I expected something for Sean Connery. I expected something for Roger Moore. Nothing. And that really surprised me. I couldn't quite get my head around that one.
Yes, I because there's been, such a long gap, and, people sort of passing in that time. Yeah, it was quite surprising, really, that there wasn't anything there for those guys. And at the end of the day, Sean started it all.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger, such a fun Bond, a lot of people's favourites. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I was born in the 70s, so Roger Moore was actually the Bond, of my childhood, and he was the one that I was watching when I was a kid on the TV. So, but of course, then seeing sort of Sean do it, and I could sort of see where it started, but I'd probably still pick some of Roger Moore films over some of the Daniel Craig ones, because they're fun. Yes, they're quite wacky in places and cringy, but ultimately they're fun action films. So, and it's a shame that they didn't put something there as a tribute to them.
Mm-hmm. Where do you stand interested? Because obviously I know about your interest in the films and the music. I don't think I've ever asked you or heard you discuss so much. What's your view on the novels?
I've read some of the novels. Some of them can be a hard read. Just
I don't know what you mean.
Some are better than others. They are of their time, pretty much. They are. I'm probably more of a film Bond fan than a book Bond fan, but I have got the books. I really could do with rereading, I will be honest. But it's been a while since I have read them. But they are some are real tough to get through, and the films are never like the books. They take bits of different books and put in the films. Like, for example, in No Time to Die, we've got a little bit of You Only Live Twice in there in the book. So they tend to pay homage in different ways, don't they?
And it's interesting that with the more recent Bonds, with the Craigs, we never saw the novelisation of the films, which we used to.
No, and I always I love a novelisation of the film. But yeah, I love a novelisation of a film anyway, and that brings me back to what I was saying about the 90s. You used to get like the film tie-in books to any film that came out, and I've got such a load of different ones, on my bookcase, and you don't see that now. And that used to be.
Yeah, it may well happen again in the future. You don't know. So, but yeah, on the novels. So, would you say you would stick more to the work of Fleming, or do you just go into the Gardner work or the Benson? Or
I am reading the Anthony Horowitz, the latest one that I'm about halfway through that, and I must admit I'm enjoying that book. It is reasonable. It's really readable. It is. Yeah, and I think like, yeah.
I got it and devoured it in like a few hours. I just plowed through it.
Well, I'm the sort of reader who has to read it in bits. I can't. Right. I would like. It's a time thing more than anything. I think not having the time to sit down and just read it for 2 hours or whatever. But yes, I am enjoying the book, and it's very readable. And when you read it, you find yourself I find myself sort of thinking what it would look like. A scene would look like, maybe in terms of a film, thinking about a film.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's just me.
No, I totally understand what you mean. I mean, like for me, it was very interesting when it came to the novels. I was obviously aware of Fleming's work, but I didn't particularly read it. I don't think I'd ever really read it. My first introduction to the probably Bonds in the novels was actually License Renewed, the John Garner book, which I found a battered copy of at a church fair, and I was like, "This looks interesting. What is this? Well, I knew what Bond was, and from then on, I got into more of the books. I got into the Fleming stuff, and it became this horrible. That church fair was a lot to answer for because the deep dive began.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was always a case of right. I've got to get a film tie-in. Got to get the making of. You got to have the making of, and again, you don't have those now.
It's
not like how they used to.
But that was the thing. So the making of thing is a very good point, because I forgot like a real addictive thing for any film.
Yeah.
The stuff that you would see, the extras. So when I first got The Living Daylights on DVD, I was like, there's all this extra stuff. And it was just, for me, it was like, wow, the floodgates were open, my eyes, popping out my head. It was amazing. I've got and I think I've probably shown you this, I've got like the books of the making of the Living Daylights and the making of On Her Majesty's. That stuff's just like, it's the greatest thing ever for me, because it's like, wow, so this happened, and it doesn't seem to be happening.
They don't. They don't tend to, or they tend to just be like pictures without any words, or just a little caption underneath. You don't get that detail. The making of GoldenEye was like a Bible. I love that book, and any of those sort of films from that time. This is not a Bond film, but I mentioned earlier on that one of my favourite film is Jaws.
Yes,
it came out in the year I was born, and it stalked me all the way through my life, basically, because I did my university dissertation on that type of film. It's classed as a crisis film. Not so much a horror film. It's a crisis film. So The Exorcist is also one. Poseidon Adventure, Terror Inferno. All these 70s movies were all basically having a dig at society, American society at the time. So you'd have like a family unit, and it would be threatened by an outside entity. So in the case of Jaws, it was a shark. And one of my favourite books that I've got is a making of Jaws, and it's a huge, thick book, and it is just a Bible to homage to that particular film, and it's a film that I can watch over and over again, and it doesn't seem as if it's set in the 70s. I don't think it's timeless. That's my ultimate favourite film.
Somewhere, I'm hoping I've still got it. There is one book, I always say this to people, I really regret getting rid of. I hope I've still got the Jaws log somewhere.
Yes, I know the Jaws log, yeah.
And one for the Jaws too. But the one book I regret getting rid of, that I kick myself, is a book called Elvis, What Happened? I got it at a charity shop in St. Helens when I was at college for like, say, 75p, and then got rid of it. It was falling to bits. It is worth a fortune. A fortune.
Yeah. It's I'm a very nostalgic person, and I in terms of films, you know, and I tend to think more of the films from the past rather than the films, you know, sort of in the last 10 years, last 20 years. Yes, there's been some, you know, really good films, but they're not as memorable as the ones I would say from sort of, for me, sort of the 80s and the 90s, you know.
And it's a thing also that you've hit the nail on the head there, and I guess it's probably something we both kind of feel, is that it's what the film, the memory of seeing that film maybe for the first time invokes to a point in your childhood or your adulthood or things like that.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Jaws, I watched that as a kid. First time it was ever put on the telly. So my brother had already been to the cinema and seen the film and knew what was happening. We'd pulled the settee out into the middle of the room. So we were right on top of the telly. And for those people who know the film, there's quite a scary jump scare halfway through the film that Spielberg put in as an added extra. And when that part of that film happens, my brother decided to jump out from behind the settee and at the same time as what was happening on the screen. And to this day, I cannot watch that scene.
Really?
Now, I recently went...
I'm not laughing at you, but I know exactly what you're on about. Yeah.
I recently went to see Jaws at the cinema in 3D. Now, not 3D as in like Jaws 3D, how they did that, which looks terrible now. It was very subtly done. It was almost as if you were bobbing in the water with them. It was that type of 3D. And I sat through that film and I've watched it. God, I can't tell you how many times I've watched it because I had to do my degree on it and all sorts. And I actually had, my hands were shaking. I got clammy hands. I felt like I was watching it for the first time. And that was only a few weeks ago.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how that film affects me, to be honest.
Wow. I mean, I would say that's something. I'd say the real horror is Jaws the Revenge, but that's for an entirely different reason.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
What future things are you going to be doing with Bond and Lot? What is there anything you'd like to tell the listeners about? Because I want to get more people from our listener base getting involved with what you're doing.
Well, I mean, I suppose for me, we'll continue doing the sort of the same thing, delving into the films. Maybe get a few more guests on. I mean, that, as I said, it's not really what the channel is about, because I know there are other YouTubers sort of out there who do that sort of thing. You know, I'm sort of trying to be slightly different in terms of, but I'm trying to keep things fresh, though, in terms of what we talk about. We don't want to talk about the same sort of thing. Also finding that we're getting on artists and people who are within the Bond community, getting them known to other people, because it doesn't always happen. I mean, I came, if we talk in terms of Cue the Music, I came very late to Cue the Music and only found out about them in 2019. Well, of course, then COVID hit, and then that was that. And I only went to see them for the first time, as you know, in Buxton, a few months ago. So it's just making things accessible for people, really, so they don't, so they're aware that there are these people out there, or this is out there, and so we'll really just continue doing. I mean, I don't make the videos very long, because they're tend to be about maybe 10 to 15 minutes, maybe sometimes a little longer, but people tend to want to just, watch stuff quite quickly these days. That's just how the type of society we live in, isn't it? I suppose.
And where just so people listening know, where can we find you? What are the links for you for your
So you can on Facebook, if you just type in the Bond Room Unlocked, you'll find that will come straight up. We got, I think it's over 1,000 members. That's just been a year going on that. Again, with the YouTube channel, again, just type in the Bond Room Unlocked and you'll find the episodes. We're on episode 64, I think was the last one I've just done. So yeah, there's all sorts of things in the back catalogue there. There's even a episode on Should Aidan Turner Be James Bond, and that is actually the episode that's got more views than anything. I would say, because that's opens the audience up to all the Aidan Turner fans that are out there, isn't it, on YouTube? So, so I'm just going to continue in that vein, and just see what happens. But at the end of the day, it's all about having fun for me, and getting the fans involved. So yeah, so we'll just keep doing that.
I couldn't put it any better myself. Everything we're doing is about having fun. So I think without further ado, again, as I said at the start, I never know which is the right one to go with. I think that we have been talking enough codswallop, as we say. So thank you so much for coming on, Vicky. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I hope you have found it okay. And as ever, great. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Thanks. Bye, everyone.